Hi guys, how's it going? I've been meaning to make this video for quite some time because people keep asking me, how do I get faster, how do I increase my speed, blah 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 blah. And I always answer the same boring response, just practice a lot, eventually it will come, use a metronome, yada yada yada, and nothing seems to come of it. It's kind of a little bit vague. It's kind of like when you've got that attractive friend in high school and you're like, hey man, how do you talk to the babes? And he says, just be confident and be yourself. And it doesn't freaking work. So what I wanted to do today was go into a bit more detail. I've got 5 points that I wanted to talk about that will hopefully improve your shredding and guitar playing speed. So point 1, let's take a look at the radius of your picking motion. Okay, so what I'm referring to when I talk about radius picking motion is how far your pick is going back and forth on the pendulum of your picking motion. So if you've got a very, very large pendulum when you're going back and forth, there's going to be more time in between each pick. So if we reduce that to sort of a smaller motion, we're going to get faster picks in between notes, and that's going to increase your overall speed. So I want to get a close-up of what I'm doing on my right hand. I'll show you the wrong way to do it and hopefully the right way to do it, and that's something you guys can take into consideration when you're practicing. So let's get a close-up. Okay, so let's talk about this picking radius thing. I want to do just a quick little shred run, and what I'm going to do is do a really, really extensive pick radius with a really long pendulum. As much as I try, I can't get the speed I want. So what I'm going to do is reduce that pendulum by quite a bit, and you're going to see how the speed increases. So just concentrate on whether you're going to have a long pick back and forth or just a shorter distance on the radius of your picking. Okay, so now that we've talked about ways to reduce that picking radius, I want to talk about ways that we can apply that into scales and exercises. So we're going to talk about chromatics and pentatonics. Okay, so I think one of the most common misconceptions about shredding is that people want to start off by playing triplet runs like this. That kind of thing. Now, when you look at something like that and we're going forward, back, forward, we can either economy pick the next note or we're going to start the next string on a backstroke. And I think in the early stages, it's too complicated to pick between economy picking and just getting used to getting that backstroke happening and dealing with those triplets. So what I want to do today is just quickly talk about pentatonics and chromatics. Now the pentatonic scale is only going to use 2 notes per string. 1, 2, 1, 2 on each string. I'm going forward, back, and then when I change the next string, forward, back, starting on a downstroke. And that can remain consistent throughout. So your right hand's just going to be doing the same thing on every string, and we're not going to have to deal with doing a backstroke or having to decide whether we want to do an economy pick or not, which I'm completely not for. So the same thing's going to kind of apply when we're dealing with a chromatic scale. If I'm doing something like this, I've got 4 notes per string. So I'm going forward, back, and then when I change to the next string, forward, back, it's going to be the same attack every way, always starting on that downstroke. And that will avoid the confusion that can come with practicing in triplets. So what I want to do now is just get a close-up of me playing a quick exercise using an A minor pentatonic and an E chromatic, and then you guys can go away and practice that using these skills. Keep in mind the radius technique as well. So now that we've got those 2 exercises down, I want to talk about economy picking and why I think we should avoid it in the early stages. Okay, so economy picking is a pretty cool technique when it's used correctly, but I think in the early stages it can cause a lot of confusion, especially when we're just dealing with sort of a straight alternate pick. I think we just want to rule it out. So what the actual concept is, let's say I'm just dealing with a quick AOE and A minor run, something like this. Just do 4 strings worth. So if I'm going to go forward, back, forward on my picking hand, I'm going to go to the next string with another forward stroke, and it's going to be kind of like a mini sweep. And it just means that every string we play is going to go forward, back, forward, forward, back, forward. So we're going to have the same motion every string. I think this is fine in the advanced stages if you want to go down this road, but I think in the early stages, the most important thing that you guys can do is do something like this. Keep your alternate picking consistent and then just change the strings when you need to, so that you're just going forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, and then changing the strings when necessary. So I strongly urge you guys to avoid economy picking in these early stages. The next thing I wanted to talk about was metronomes and pulses with triplets, and just ways to practice with a metronome effectively. A lot of people talk about using the metronome to increase speed, which is all very fine and dandy, but there is a certain way to go about it. Now, we need to use the metronome to find the pulse of what we're trying to shred, whether it be a quaver pulse, a semi-quaver pulse, or a triplet pulse. So I'm going to play 3 different scales over 80 beats per minute, and you're going to see how the pulse differs from one exercise to the other. And then hopefully that will clear up some ways that you guys can effectively use your metronome and increase speed and get the results you want. Okay, so now I'm going to do the A minor pentatonic we had at the start of the exercise over 80 beats per minute on a metronome with a quaver pulse. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to do the chromatic exercise we had before with a semi-quaver pulse, which means that each beat you hear, we're going to try and do 4 notes for that, and it's going to be 80 beats per minute. Let's give that a try. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one of the more difficult things to practice with a metronome is triplet emphasis. So what I want to do now is I'm going to leave it at 80 beats per minute, and we're going to do a pentatonic lick using triplets. So for each beat I want to hear 3 notes or play basically a pineapple pulse. So we're going to be going pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. That's what an old teacher told me, and I've never forgot it. So let's try and do a pineapple pulse on a pentatonic triplet run. 2, 3, 4, pineapple, 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 pineapple. Okay, so lastly I wanted to show you a semi-quavered triplet emphasis. So for each click we want to have 6 notes, or 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Let's try it with a bit of a shreddy feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, diddle, 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 diddle. Okay, so now that we've talked about the metronomes and correct pulses, I want to talk about pick choice. This is pretty damn important. In order to get your shred speed up to something that sounds pretty awesome, you need to be at a point where you're really, really comfortable with the positions that you're sitting in, the way your hands are resting, and to be able to get that speed sounding nice and fluent, you need to be really, really confident in what's going on in your right hand. And one of the main things that can cause problems is your pick choice. So I think I urge you to sit down, get a couple of picks out, try, the bigger thick ones, the flimsier ones, or even the smaller jazz picky ones. I'll go through a couple of my choices and we'll see which one I like best. Okay, so I've got a 60 mil here, with a nice big chunky pick. Let's see how that goes. No. Okay, now I've got this little cute Tortex, guys. It's kind of like a flimsy jazz pick. Let's see how that goes. It's alright. Now I'm going to try using my middle fingernail. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Okay, so now that we've rectified our pick choice, I want to talk about distortion and clean settings and basically just getting the tone you want. Okay, so tone, clean or dirty, what pickup switches you use. These are things that a lot of people fret about, perchance unjustly so. I think, yeah, there is a degree of importance, but more importantly than anything, getting the right amp settings and messing around with your guitar too much is actually just putting in that practice time and getting your technique good enough. But I guess when we're looking at the tones and the things that we're trying to emulate, we've got to talk about the guitarist, the solos that we're practicing, or your own identity as a guitarist. Let's say, for example, you wanted to practice a Children of Bodom solo. You wouldn't use the neck pickup because that's not what Alexi ever uses. He's generally always on this bridge and he's doing his thing that way. And that, if that's something you're trying to directly emulate, I would suggest trying to practice it in the circumstances to get in touch with the original composer. If I was playing something by Yngwie Malmsteen or Avenged Sevenfold, something like that, I would generally chuck the distortion on pretty aggressively and be playing on my neck pickup as well. If I'm doing straight scales or anything jazzy, or I'll generally be clean and on this neck pickup. So I guess one thing that I want to hammer home today is think about the context of what you're doing. If someone says always practice clean, it's not necessarily that valid. I think if you've got to get the tone you're looking for to get closer to the original idea, I think try and do a little bit of clean and a little bit of distortion and just work through those ideas slowly, and hopefully you will reach your goals eventually. If you guys have any more questions, please leave a comment down below. Hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I will catch you all very soon. Happy shredding.